We've been looking at our progress, looking at hopes, and looking at our visions, and looking at where we intend to go. I thought it would be a good idea for us to start having any conversations around the subject matter, especially from a criticism point of view, because those are markers that we can use to effect change as well. Because we don't have to be. There's no linear approach to bringing about a new Nigeria. We can look at it simply by telling us the blatant truth. Which calling a spade, or we can look at it from an inspirational point of view as well, where we apply levels of emotional intelligence to see how we can now kickstart a mindset of change in alignment with the purpose. All right, so as we get along, a short narrative of how we intend to engage is, or rather, what we intend to talk about today, obviously, is how do we bring about a new Nigeria as possible vision. Specifically, the key was there is a new Nigeria as possible, simply because that is a word that I have aligned with for a very, very long time. For years, when you look at Nigeria, most of us who had initially given up on Nigeria, we look at Nigeria, and then you look at certain markers, and those markers would act as indicators going forward. You look at those markers and say, okay, how do you use these markers to raise your level of hope? Then Nigeria happens again, and then you go back to your shell and you just forget about it. But after a while, you see certain markers again. These markers will come up, they will come up periodically, and then you start to have an alignment. That alignment is a variant of a possibility that some of us have captured. We're happy to have that small alignment, that small variant there where you meet someone else who shares a vision of a better Nigeria. You be like, wow, okay, this person believes in this, so what is stopping me from aligning with you and then sharing your own opinion and then increasing my belief going forward? For many of us, especially those of us who participated in the last election, which we will talk about extensively, for many of us, it was the coming out of Peter Obi that reassured us of a vision for Nigeria, simply because we know for a fact that Nigeria has been blessed with everything known to man besides leadership. The only thing that we've not really been fully blessed with, from my opinion, is forms of leadership that could take us to levels of appreciation that we've never seen before. And this leadership, obviously coming from us Nigerians, we have seen it showcased in a gentleman called Peter Obi. Now, the reason why I'm happy about these engagements now, like I said initially, we welcome negative engagements, negative criticisms, and harsh realities, but also would offer inspirational guidelines. So the reason why I'm happy for these kind of conversations is there's so much variables when dealing with the possibilities of a new Nigeria. There's so much variables to look at. There's so much variables to anchor on, and then you can obviously cascade it down to specific situations. And those variables, I don't think they're being promoted enough in view of change. Like for a perfect example, I'll give you is many moons ago when India was going through its patch. I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but when India was going through its patch at some point, if you met an Indian and you're talking about maybe internet fraud or all that, he wouldn't chastise his country per se. He would tell you straight up to your face that, oh, we're going through a tough time, but we will get it right. With a shake of the head, when they shake their head to indicate they're serious about something, they will shake their head and tell you that they will get it right, but we'll get it right. There was this attitude or character of the Indians. They were so confident that they were going to get it right, that you scale this 15 odd years or 20 years later, they are the tech company of the world, dare I say, in view of service when it comes to outsourcing and offshoring stuff. So we look at that situation and say, okay, how do we mirror that with our own thinking? How do we get to that kind of level where we too can start looking at a variant of hope for Nigeria? So when someone asks you, this is your country, what's going on? How do you reply? Personally, my default is to really give the country a harsh reality. So if we're getting it wrong, I like to say we're getting it wrong. I don't really like to paint a picture of fantasy to say, okay, fair enough, we can do this, we can do that. No, I like to get straight to the point and say, this is where we're messing up. Like when we had the fake bishops out, we called them, no, these are fake bishops. They're not giving any value to what they're trying to do. It's criminal. If we had the election, obviously, we don't have to paint it. It was a criminal act from the highest order. So we'll call it what it is, because that should worry a well-meaning Nigerian, regardless of the party you choose. So if you're having a conversation with a well-meaning Nigerian and they see you are aggrieved about a decision, they should worry. That conversation should be had. So that's another variance of how things can start in terms of talking about these possibilities. But the key ones, before we go into an open mic conversation, the key ones I feel we should look at are the things that we can actually affect, things that we can actually change. Bear in mind that majority of these things that we can change, it's inside each and every one of us, and it obviously starts with us. But when we scale it and we say, how do you develop a vision for Nigeria per se? There's another 2-3 minutes, and then we can start the conversation. How do you develop a vision for a country? It's an interesting one because bringing about a change for a new Nigeria, any significant change in a country requires a multi-faceted approach where stakeholders, this is the citizens like us, and obviously the leaders or the rulers, the government and all that, civil societies, businesses and all that, we all have to create steps and strategies to work towards this new Nigeria. It's inevitable. We all have to do it. And systematically, when we do that, we have a clear vision as a collective vision. But the point I'm trying to raise now, before we go into that conversation, is how we're going to anchor on. How do we develop a vision, for a new Nigeria? We already have a mantra, the variant of that mantra, or rather the meaning of that mantra, a new Nigeria is possible. It's supposed to be like a Kickstarter. It's supposed to be like a checkpoint, a constant reminder to the individual who maybe has given up or hasn't seen a new Nigeria before, or just expects something to change. So it's a very powerful statement that I don't think we can underestimate. I think it's a statement that carries all the vision that is required for Nigeria. That's just me. I think it's a statement that is it showcases our intention. So it gives you the ability to express yourself. I think it's a statement that when you make it, you are kickstarting something within the universe. That's how I feel. When you say to yourself, a new Nigeria is possible sometimes, maybe we should take time out to really think about how we feel when we say it. Whereas humans, the first thing you can do is cut that short and say, it's not possible. Fair enough. But when you cut that, then you've limited your thinking process of other possibilities. So that individual is obviously flawed on a level because you've not expressed your creativity, or you've not thought about how creative you can get with your processing. So a new Nigeria being possible to that individual with a limited vision, you would find that going forward, they will struggle with dissonance, which is not showing not understanding where they are in the first place. So from that vision creating point of view, I think the word, or rather the phrase, a new Nigeria is possible, it's one that we can obviously harness, amplify, market, promote to any Nigerian who is of the age of reasoning. So if you start reasoning from 2 and you're presented with the phrase, a new Nigeria is possible, you can think about something new. If you're old and really, really old and in your deathbed about to go and you're presented with the statement, a new Nigeria is possible, it can give you a smile before you pass on to the lands beyond. If you're in the middle and you are, let's say, the middle class or whatever, and you're presented with that statement, it should be able to give you a variant of hope. Variant being, not everybody is going to look at these possibilities as the same in the first place. Mr. Peter Obi's vision of a new Nigeria, I can assure you it's completely different from mine. But what brings us together is the phrase, we share that phrase and we know exactly what it is. I'll tell you what the phrase can do. That phrase can help with leadership and political decisions. It can help leaders because it can help you create a larger vision of a country and showcase that vision to other people. When we say new Nigeria is possible from a leadership point of view, you're beating your chest to say you've gone through the processes, you've gone through possibilities, you've looked at every possible variant of possibilities and you align with all of them. So that gives you fundamental hope to come out and speak truth to power and say, yes, a new Nigeria is possible. Guys, if you can repost the space, that would be great, just so we can have some traction. I feel we're going to have an interesting conversations after this. Thank you. So looking at it from a leadership point of view, then you look at it from political will. When you say a new Nigeria is possible as a politician, if you are sincere to yourself, you already know the task ahead. You already know what you're going to do. So that's the kind of thing that would give you the empowering wisdom to say, from a political will point of view, to go out and say, a new Nigeria is possible and, we are going to achieve it. And you can scale that to any kind of political activities. As long as that mantra is the forerunner of your intention, I can bet you that positive outcomes will start to spin out of there, because it will engage engagement, it will engage support, it will engage other visionary leaders who are committed to the reform and development of Nigeria. And these leaders would align with that phrase. As to when it comes to citizen engagement and awareness, this is where I love the phrase "a new Nigeria is possible." From this point of view. From this point of view, that's where I come in. That's where you guys come in. That's where we all come in. So if you look at a new Nigeria as possible from a citizens engagement point of view, critical word engagement, and then awareness. You see, like I said before, I was never really interested in Nigerian situation. I'm still not interested in the politics, but I'm a full-blown follower of leadership. So I understand things more from a leadership point of view. When it comes to citizen engagement, when we started having conversations around new Nigeria being possible, this is about 5 years ago, these conversations led to a high traffic of engagement with Nigerian citizens. Those citizens all had variants of ideas of how they would bring about this new Nigeria. This was 5 years ago, before we even some of us even heard about Peter Obi, before some of us even heard about the obedient movement, obviously. But the high level of engagement at that point in time was such that we were educating each other about what is needed, even if as much as we knew that these things were not apparent then, but we were educating each other about these possibilities, and we were creating high levels of awareness at the time. This was just before COVID and obviously during COVID. The reason I'm using this as an example, because that is where we found ourselves again, engaging each other, creating awareness for each other about the possibilities, about how we can bring about a new Nigeria as possible vision. So citizens engagement is a huge factor in bringing about this level of change, because we educate ourselves about our rights. We've done that in numerous spaces. We've educated ourselves about our responsibilities. We've constantly done that. In short, since February, when we started going onto spaces almost on a daily basis after that flawed decision, we have always showcased our brilliance as Nigerians when it comes to engagement, when it comes to responsibilities, when it comes to rights, letting people know what it is they need to do, how they need to go about it. But sadly, this doesn't always transgress into action. But that's another subject matter as we get along, So we've always encouraged civic participation in our conversation. We talked about voting, we talked about get your ballot, get your PVC, and all that good stuff. Those kind of things are seen as markers to showcase the possibilities of a new Nigeria, because once that engagement is scaled, and there's an aligned vision, then you can see possibilities. That's how I see it. You can see possibilities. We use social media today to engage. We use the same social media to talk about grassroots organizations and grassroots politics. We use social media to talk about public awareness in view of campaigns and how we can support it. So we are already having conversations aligned with progress. We're already having conversations aligned with the new Nigeria. Don't forget, initially, I said one of the things that Nigeria is not blessed with is leadership. But when it comes to its people, we know who we are. It's the funny thing about Nigerians. We know how brilliant we can be with our conversations, but we simply don't have that leadership to showcase our collective vision. There lies the problem. So relating it to what I was saying in terms of us having all these social media tools to empower ourselves and empower the public and organize different kind of support and rallies and all that, you can now see possibilities if an action is taken. You can see the possibilities of citizens talking to themselves in view of wanting to take a specific kind of action. You can see citizens creating awareness for Nigeria so that awareness can kickstart a movement, for instance, kickstart a revolution, kickstart an ideology, kickstart an attitudinal change. You can see this kind of engagement bringing this thing. So that's where we are, guys. And I think I've done enough justice to how we want the conversations to flow. So we can begin from there to look at variants of how we want to bring about a new Nigeria's possible vision. From your point of view, how do you think we can do it, guys? Kick off the conversation on that for us, and we can go into different opinions and mindsets of how we can make this vision a reality. Thanks.
Our new Nigeria is possible. One love Nigeria, this is our vision. I see great nation with happy people. Our new Nigeria is possible.